What's going on, everybody? It's the Fantasy Football Almanac, back at it with another fantasy football video. Today we're going to be discussing premier waiver wire ads from week 1 of fantasy football. We're going to be discussing a few running backs, a few wide receivers, and a few tight ends that you guys can absolutely steal out from under your league mates to help you win your league this season. Before we get into it, if you wouldn't mind, go down, leave a like on this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Would really mean the world to me. Love you guys all so much. Turn that notification bell on as well if you do enjoy. Gonna be posting fantasy football content every single day. With that out of the way though, let's get into our first running back here in Jeff Wilson Jr. So let's start with Jeff Wilson Jr. Jeff Wilson Jr. only rostered in 17% of leagues. I think he's going to be the #1 waiver wire pickup in almost every single format. Now that Elijah Mitchell is out for 2 months with an MCL sprain, I think it is entirely worth it to grab Jeff Wilson. To start, when Elijah Mitchell came out of the game, it was Jeff Wilson Jr. who assumed the carries. Yes, he only had 9 carries for 22 yards, but this 49ers O-line is one of the best in the entire league. Trent Williams is arguably the best O-lineman in the entire league. And in the game, there was torrential downpour the entire time. I mean, how can you expect anyone to play even decently in a game like that? There's pretty much just no way. So Jeff Wilson did falter. He only had 4 points, but even still, the workload is going to be there for the next 2 months. You may even be able to trade Jeff Wilson Jr. for another player. You could package him up to the Elijah Mitchell owner for Jeff Wilson, another player, and get somebody really, really good in return because they need Jeff Wilson Jr. Also, in 2020, when we saw Jeff Wilson Jr. get the touches that he deserves in this 49ers offense, he had 20 carries for 76 yards and 22 fantasy points, 22 carries for 183 yards and 27 fantasy points, 17 carries for 112 yards and 31 fantasy points. This guy has proven he can ball. He's definitely at least a mid running back 2 now that he is here, with potential to be a high-end running back 2 for the next 2 months. If you can get that, I would absolutely secure it. But now let's move on to our next running back here. The next guy I want to talk about here is Rex Burkhead. I know, don't shoot me. Absolutely disgusting name here. Not a guy I ever thought I would be discussing again in fantasy football. But when you go out there and get 14 total attempts and 8 targets, that's 22 total opportunities, it's impossible to ignore. A guy like Dameon Pierce going in the 5th round in some fantasy football drafts, and if Dameon Pierce were to have this workload here with 14 carries and 8 total targets, everyone would be all over Dameon Pierce. He would be the hottest commodity in all of fantasy football. But instead, we got Rex Burkhead here, who probably won't even get picked up in waivers if your league isn't very savvy here, but he is an absolute steal if you can get him with, let's say, even your second waiver wire pick. I think Rex Burkhead is supremely good value there just because he's getting guaranteed volume here. He got 3 more carries than Dameon Pierce, 14 to 11, and then also 8 targets to Dameon Pierce's 1. It's clear they want Rex Burkhead to be the lead back in this offense, even if it is somewhat of a split backfield in a bad offense here. Rex Burkhead still has the floor with his passing work, and if you're getting a decent floor at this price point, I'd say it's absolutely worth it. I would not spend my first waiver wire claim on him, but potentially my second, and I don't think too many people are going to be picking this guy up, so I would go out there and get him while you can. The final running back I want to talk about is Jaylen Warren here. I think Jaylen Warren is absolutely warranted of a waiver wire claim here, and the reason why is because Najee Harris came into the season with a Liz Frank injury. That is a pretty poor way to start the season, and then not only that, in the 4th quarter of the first game against the Bengals, he comes in and hurts his foot. If Najee Harris were to miss extended time for any reason, having a bell cow running back sitting in waivers right now for 1 week even is a nice rental to have. Potentially, you can sell him to the Najee Harris owner, make him a little bit scared, weave him a story saying, oh, Najee Harris is injured, he's done. Weave a little bit of a story here and sell Jaylen Warren plus another player and get something really, really good in return here. So I think Jaylen Warren is an absolute steal where he's going. He does look to be the #2 back in this offense now, and if that's the case, once Najee misses time, or if Najee misses time, he's going to be that lead dog here, and that's really what we're looking for, is lead dog levels of volume. He's got it. I would definitely go after him here. But that's it for my running backs. Let's move on to our wide receiver waiver wire edition. My number one waiver wire pickup at the wide receiver position this year is Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel, not a guy I was expecting to be a huge waiver wire ad here, which is why I don't think really anybody was talking about him. He's only rostered in 12% of leagues here. But 11 targets, 8 receptions, a touchdown, and 55 yards, that's legit. That's clear that Carson Wentz at least likes to throw to this guy a little bit. Carson Wentz looked pretty good in this game. Curtis Samuel looked really good in this game. And we've seen the potential from Curtis Samuel before. In 2019, finishing as the wide receiver 36, yes, that's basically a wide receiver 4, but this is waiver wires. I mean, you can't really expect anything crazier. But in 2020, finishing as the wide receiver 25, that is a high-end wide receiver 3, low-end wide receiver 2. If you are getting that on waivers, that is really good. Then last year is constantly dealing with injuries, barely gets on the field. Now he's looking really, really good in his first game of the NFL season. Yes, there is target competition with both Terry McLaurin on the field and Jahan Dotson, but at the same time, if he's getting 11 targets with even somewhat regularity, that is just absolutely phenomenal pickup in waivers. Even if he's getting 7 targets pretty regularly, that is absolutely fine. Plus, he is one of those guys that gets a few runs every game, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but it does add 1 or 2 fantasy points every single game. If you're getting 1 or 2 free fantasy points, why not take it? That's why I like Curtis Samuel as my number 1 waiver wire pickup at the wide receiver position. Now, let's move on to our second wide receiver here. The second wide receiver I want to talk about here is Devin Duvernay. Yes, I am a tiny bit concerned with the overall targets he received. He only got 4 targets, but he did turn that into 4 receptions, 54 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And the way I'm looking at it is that this wide receiver 1 job in Baltimore is 100% up for grabs. We know Mark Andrews is the tight end 1, but we have no idea who this wide receiver 1 is going to be. Yes, it could be Rashad Bateman. It could somehow be Demarcus Robinson, but I would say the 2 players with the most odds to do it are Devin Duvernay and Rashad Bateman here. These are the 2 players duking it out. Rashad Bateman going in the 6th round in best ball leagues. Devin Duvernay not coming off the board until almost the last round. I mean, he's only rostered in 2% of leagues here on Sleeper, so this guy is pretty much going completely under the radar here. I think he's at least worth a dart throw on. Again, I would rather have a guy like Curtis Samuel here, because I think Curtis Samuel is in line for more volume. But if Devin Duvernay does ascend and takes this wide receiver 1 job, he's absolutely valuable. Where he's being picked up on waivers right now, I would definitely throw a dart at him here. He is worth it. Now let's move on to our last wide receiver here, though. The last guy I want to talk about, not a guy probably most of you guys were expecting here. He's 0% rostered. He's 0% started. He is on the Tennessee Titans. I'm talking about Kyle Phillips here. Kyle Phillips drafted in the 5th round of this year's NFL draft, but goes out there, gets 9 targets for 6 receptions, and turns that into 66 yards, despite being outsnapped by both Robert Woods and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I don't see how you could go out here and not say Kyle Phillips put on a show as a 5th round pick. I think he's at least worth a waiver wire ad here. Maybe not initially in waivers, because I don't think too many people are going to go out and really target this guy. But I'd say once waiver wire is clear, so you don't have to waste any money if you're on Fab, or your waiver wire claim if you do standard waiver wires, go out there and grab him, drop him for, add him for whoever you want. I'd say, whoever dudded on your bench, there's got to be at least 1 player. I would grab him. I think he's 100% worth it where he's going. Yes, he was a 5th round pick, but at the same time, he got 9 targets here. Tannehill clearly likes to throw this guy. He has been getting a ton of preseason buzz here. A guy I really like and I think is massively undervalued. But that's it for my wide receivers. Now I'm going to talk about a few tight ends because, oh man, the tight end position this week was absolutely brutal. Cole Kmet dropping 0. Irv Smith dropping 0. There was no production to be found anywhere. David Njoku dropping 1.2. It was pain. It was agony. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of tight end action that you could pick up on the waivers. Maybe try and shift away from guys like Irv Smith to some other players that we will get into in just a second. But before I get into these tight ends, if you guys could, it would mean the world to me. Please go down, give this video a like, give this video a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy. It really does help. Every single like, comment, subscriber, it makes my heart grow warmer. I love you guys so much, and you guys can absolutely dominate. Your league mates, your friends, your coworkers, doesn't matter. Really excited for that. But anyways, let's hop into these tight ends now. For tight ends, there are 2 guys I'm going after here. The first one is named Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, a guy I don't think is going to be great. I mean, there's pretty much no shot he does what he does again, 4 rushes for 81 yards. But those 4 rushes do come in handy. They do raise his floor quite a fair amount, and he will have touches scripted to him because that's the kind of player he is. He needs these scripted touches. He's like a Rondale Moore type guy where you are going to get this guy specific touches on specific plays where it's designed for him to get the ball and him specifically. Sure, he may only have 2-3 targets a game, but he's going to have 4 or 5 rushes a game. And at that point, if you're getting 7 total opportunities and you're at the tight end position, I am fine with that just because tight end is so dry. And the thing is, Taysom Hill provides a nice floor. Yes, there is no more Sean Payton, but at the same time, if you're getting a pseudo running back at tight end, I am all for it. And also, if something does happen to Alvin Kamara, this guy could be really good. Not even to mention the fact that the game script was really negative. The Saints were down early, and because of that, they weren't able to run the ball nearly as much. You didn't see Kamara get a lot of usage in the run game, and Taysom Hill only got 4 touches here. We should expect to see Taysom Hill's overall rushing production go up a tiny bit, and he should get 2 or 3 targets a game. And at the tight end position, I think that is absolutely worth it for a guy that's 10% rostered, 1% started. I don't even think you'll need to spend a waiver pickup on him, but I think he's absolutely worth it to secure. If you had a guy like Irv Smith, like Cole Kmet, who dropped you nothing, I think he's absolutely worth it to secure here. And the other guy I want to talk about is Gerald Everitt of the Los Angeles Chargers. Guy's rostered in 41% of leagues, which means he just barely fits under our 50% threshold that we can go and talk about him here. The reason why I like Gerald Everitt is, for one, he's attached to Justin Herbert here, but 2, Keenan Allen's down. He might miss some time, and with Keenan Allen out, Gerald Everitt was able to get 4 targets, turn that into 3 receptions for 54, and a touchdown here. Now, I'm not expecting the touchdown every time. I'm not even expecting 4 targets every time. But being attached to the best quarterback of his career by far, I just think you need to take a shot on him, at least stash him on your bench. If Justin Herbert does like him, then he's absolutely worth it where he's going. You may need to spend a waiver wire claim on him. You may need to spend a couple bucks in fab. But at the same time, I think it is worth it for a guy like this, especially if you don't have a Kyle Pitts, a Mark Andrews, a Travis Kelce. I think it is absolutely worth it. But that is it for tight ends. I just do want to discuss one quarterback in one quarterback leagues. Before I go, because Dak Prescott did go down, I think it is absolutely essential that you pick up Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, a guy that dropped 27 points in week 1, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I mean, that is absolutely wild. Very much unlike Carson Wentz, but he looked really, really good in this offense. And a lot of his weapons looked really, really good too. Antonio Gibson looked awesome. Curtis Samuel looked awesome. Terry McLaurin has always been really good. And Jahan Dotson with 2 touchdowns. I think it is absolutely essential that you pick up Carson Wentz if you do have a guy like Dak in a one quarterback league and he did go down. I think Carson Wentz is at least a suitable replacement. Probably not going to be as good as Dak would have been. But at the same time, with Dak going down, you pretty much need it. Obviously, if you have a guy like Josh Allen, there is no point for you to pick up Carson Wentz. But if you have one of those lower-end QB1s here, I think it is nice to back up them with a guy like Carson Wentz here. But anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for my waiver wire video for week 1. Please let me know down below in the comments who are your number 1 waiver wire pickups for this week, and ask me any fantasy football related questions down below in the comments. I'm answering every single comment. Whether you think Jeff Wilson Jr. is an absolutely dumb pick for your first waiver wire claim, I don't care. Tell me I'm an absolute idiot. I do not mind. I just want to give you guys the best advice possible, so I'm always here for other viewpoints. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to comment as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, have a good day, a good night, and a good life.